People don't buy processes. They don't buy processes. They buy outcomes due to their emotional attachment to that outcome. So if all you're talking about is yourself and how great you are and your processes that you worked really hard, by the way, I totally get it. You worked really hard to learn what you do so that you could come up with your processes. Nobody cares. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Nobody cares. And they don't care until they've understood that they want the outcome that all of your processes and credentials can provide for them.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the None of Your Business podcast. Sean Dill here with you, missing my better half today. Lacey is feeling a little bit under the weather today, which, in all fairness, she has been going at it super hard, just building out the well-infused franchise concept with Stacy Bloomy, along with her coaching clients, along with BDC, book yourself solid trainings, all the things that she does. So we're giving her the day off, which is a friendly reminder for a lot of you. Maybe you need to take a moment to give yourselves a day off as well. It's difficult, the life of an entrepreneur, when you've got so many things going on. You know, a lot of people always ask Lacey and I, how do you guys do all of this stuff? Well, sometimes, case in point today, it sneaks up on us and it puts us out for the count. And today is one of those days for Lacey. But never fear, we have a fantastic guest who's going to carry well over 2/3 of the show. I know it. And this is going to be very, very important for you, because a lot of you struggle with making that leap, right? You have this great idea and you're trying to make that transition. In fact, I see a lot of content on social media trying to encourage people to make that jump from their jobs and move into being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, owning your own business. But then you finally make that jump and you're like, well, gosh, I don't know what to do other than, I'm making content, I'm doing my reels, I'm putting stuff out there. Well, today we have an expert that's going to help to sort out all of that for us, especially for those of you who are in that bridge, in that transition zone. But maybe you are beyond that transition. I still think this is going to be incredibly valuable for you, because we're going to talk about intentional leads, about getting leads with intention, not just going on and rambling about what you had for breakfast or what you think about the roundabouts in Carmel, Indiana. Well, how do we convert those eyeballs into intentional leads so that we can seamlessly and easily move into sales conversations? Because after all, marketing doesn't get you clients. It just creates awareness about who you are and what you have to offer the world. And then we still have to do the hard work of selling. Wouldn't it be great if those leads were a little better teed up and ready to receive what it was that you were offering? Well, today's expert has all of that and so much more. Let's bring in Erin Marcus. Erin, welcome to the None of Your Business podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Nothing, no pressure. Just how do you grow your business? Carry 2/3 of the conversation. And it's so funny because I've been having the same conversation with my team about we're tired. Like there's something in the water right now. So hopefully your partner feels better soon and back on our feet.
Absolutely. So we always begin the podcast with this exact same question for every single guest. It always proves to be very fascinating. But you being a speaker, you being seen on social media, a lot of people looking to you as a leader. A lot of times what happens is we don't know the backstory. And so oftentimes what I have found is people create the Erin Marcus backstory in their heads. And that story looks like, well, Erin's lucky. She read all the books that there are on marketing. Plus that, her parents, they were experts in marketing. I'm sure they ran marketing for a couple Fortune 50 companies. So of course, if you're Erin, it all comes super natural and easy for you. And I wish I were her, because look at her on camera, look at what she does, look at her on stage. It's so easy for her. And what happens is we don't actually know the backstory of how Erin Marcus became Erin Marcus, and all of those sort of trials and tribulations. So I'd love if you kind of highlight the story and maybe pick out a few of your biggest missteps that taught you the biggest lessons that today you're able to teach us.
Awesome. No, I absolutely love it because nothing could be further from the truth, right? So here's I call it, right, what's the origin story? And in hindsight, I can see how certain things I experienced serve me so well. So total Gen X, Chicago public schools in the 70s and 80s. My dad was a cop, my mom was a hairdresser, and I had much more important things to do than go to school. So, right, just putting it is what it is, right? And however, I also grew up again in the 70s and 80s. It was a little different. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have Google Translate, but I grew up with people from 22 different countries. 22 different countries. Nobody spoke English and nobody had any money. And what that did is it eliminated anything like a clique or any kind of jealousy because we were all just a group of kids literally trying to feed ourselves, trying to make money, trying to figure out how to get along. And because again, we didn't have the technical tools that you have now, you just figure it out. And the thing that I learned from the non-educational background is that people are just people. People are just people. Don't assume you know what they're going through. You have no idea what's going on in the back of somebody's experiences. And we're all so much more alike than we are dissimilar. And it taught me, because it was Chicago and it was a little dangerous, it taught me a really high level of self-awareness and situational awareness. And at the same time, it taught me how to communicate with intent and relate to absolutely anybody.
So I want to dive into lead gen. You can find out because you have a lead gen masterclass coming up. But
Yes.
regardless of when anybody is consuming the podcast, regardless of when that is, go to conqueryourbusiness.com so that you can find out all of the cool stuff that Erin has currently. But if you go now, you will find out that there is a lead gen masterclass. I want to dive in and spend some time talking about leads. A lot of people, this is a very interesting discussion, right? And there's marketing and there's sales. And there's the factions or the camps, marketing people that are like, listen, it's all about marketing. We've got to get out there and we've got to market, the Holy Grail, Super Bowl commercial. Let's get out there and absolutely dominate marketing. Then you have the salespeople. And salespeople are saying, listen, what good is marketing if you can't sell? You need to take my masterclass on sales. And here's what I find out. Then, the entrepreneur, we go out there and we get a little bit of both. And we're like, all right, I think I have a handle on it. Feeling pretty good about myself. I just came off that brand new sales masterclass. And then I get my leads coming in and I struggle. And I'm like, you know what, Erin? It's just that the leads are terrible. These leads suck. It's not that I'm no good at sales. It's that the leads are bad, right? And even the marketers then are like, what are you talking about? The leads are bad. The leads are great. You're just not that good at sales. Help us to sort through that. I'd love to hear your take first on what's more important, marketing or sales, and then how valuable really are leads in that equation?
So I absolutely love it because it's true that that's what you hear. And what's false is any of it. Like to me, the most important piece is a client acquisition system.
Ooh,
Right? A
love it.
client acquisition system. And I have clients who are $1 million businesses that don't have a client acquisition system because kind of like what you were talking about, you go in a business to do the thing the business does, right? You go in a business because you like doing the thing. But learning how to become a business owner is completely different. So you spend all your time, money, energy, effort on the back end doing the thing the business does, delivering the service, and you don't systematize the front end of your business. And yes, you have to learn how to close a sales conversation. Like, let's just put that out there. You have to learn how to have a high integrity. When I teach sales, I call it put the conversation in your sales conversations. That being said, most of the time that there's a problem, if the leads coming in aren't good leads, if there's a bunch of marketing efforts being made that aren't even turning into leads, Most of the time, what I find is the entrepreneur, the business owner, this is the way I describe it. They're trying to go to work without doing the work. They never laid their foundation. They're just out there doing random acts of marketing and random acts of business, and it's an ebb and flow. There's no consistency to their actions. There's no congruency between their platforms, and there's no clear intentional communication process that takes their people, right? The people who get to experience your marketing on a journey, a self-selected journey to move you through those stages of marketing. I became aware that Erin has a business because I saw her on the podcast. Great. But where is your nurturing and engagement to reconnect with those people, to learn more about them as they learn more about you? And then when, and this is really important, when is it appropriate? At what point have you actually cultivated enough social capital to earn the right to make an offer?
Love the terms. I love the terms. I love the way that you are explaining this and having a client acquisition system. Number one, for everybody that has spent time with us on the podcast, you have heard me talk about how so many of you are successful, but you're successful by accident. And that's exactly, when you're saying, Erin, there's people that have $1 million businesses, 7-figure businesses, and have no client acquisition system. Well, great. They wake up and they do the thing, and the thing that they do it so well that they are successful, but there's no system to it. It's not repeatable. It's not predictable. It's an accidental success story. People who are successful by accident get so mad when I say that. They get so mad. And then I love you talking about, accumulating basically this idea of trust and credibility, right? Out of the Book Yourself Solid system, we talk trust and credibility. I talk about goodwill coins. Like we're stacking these coins. I
Yeah.
receive a coin of goodwill by doing a podcast, by doing a piece of content, by offering value. And so I love those concepts that you're talking about. Let's roll it back just a little bit. Let's go to the beginning then. So I hope that everybody understands, man, leads are really important. And they're saying, Erin, I want leads. Roll me all the way back. First steps. How do I get started then? Because like you said, I love that random acts of marketing. So I see someone else and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Tell me, what are some things that I should do to get myself ready to have leads?
You have to set a solid foundation. And that solid foundation is created by knowing exactly what you're offering and making sure it's profitable. By the way, please, can we just assume that we're doing our financial due diligence as well? So it's this solid offer that's been vetted, meaning somebody actually wants to pay for it. You have to know, who exactly are you talking to, right? We hear client avatar, and that's great. And sometimes it's a little overused because a lot of people put their demographics together for their client avatar, and that's the low bar. That is such a low bar you're setting for yourself. What are the psychographics? How do they think? What are their buying decisions? Like, what are their deal breakers for your offer? What have they already tried that didn't work for them in your marketplace? Or what have they tried and they loved in their marketplace? You have to know so much more about your prospect than just their demographics, so that in your marketing, you can communicate with intent. And then you have to be able to talk about the offer, right? What you do and who you do it for, in outcome based language. And it sounds obvious, but it's a little trickier than you think. People don't buy processes. They don't buy processes. They buy outcomes due to their emotional attachment to that outcome. So if all you're talking about is yourself and how great you are and your processes that you worked really hard, by the way, I totally get it. You worked really hard to learn what you do so that you could come up with your processes. Nobody cares. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Nobody cares. And they don't care until they've understood that they want the outcome that all of your processes and credentials can provide for them.
Erin, I need for you to say some more controversial stuff that I would disagree with. because I'm having a hard time finding anything to disagree with. I love this idea of the ideal client. We talk about this a lot here. Ideal client, I believe, is actually a belief system. Yes, it can include all of these, the demographics, the economics, all of these things. But I always ask people, what would somebody have to believe to become your client? And it really is like, even from what you're talking about, past experiences. But I'd have to believe that those past experiences didn't serve me, or that they weren't what I was looking for, right? It's all around a belief system. And if I really understood the belief system, and I think that's somewhat where you're going, I could speak into that belief system, right? I could help them to affirm it. I could give them more assurance because it is a belief system. They're not even sure if it's particularly true, and especially for viewers of this podcast, typically service-based entrepreneurs. So
Mhm.
they provide a service, not something tangible. I could tell you that, listen, I have an iPhone and it's great because I can make phone calls with it. And that's verifiable, right? Like, that's true. That's not a belief. But if I told you my massage therapist is the best ever, that is totally subjective. Like, what do you mean? Like, and so I look for validation in these belief systems that I've created, especially around interacting with service providers. And I love that. The other thing that you talked about, though, is the offer. And I want to have you dive into that and see if maybe I can find some things to disagree with. But one of the challenges that our viewers and listeners have is that most of them tend to offer sort of a mid-range offer, because you talked about, like, they fell in love with the thing they do. So let's say, I was a massage therapist, an acupuncturist. I offer this thing, but it's not $10. It's a couple $100 or maybe a couple $1,000. It's not $100,000 either. So it's not a long drawn out sales cycle. But a lot of the challenge is like, hey, I'm online trying to get people to just jump right into, a $400, $500 commitment level. And look, they don't really know much about me other than my social media presence. What are some things that then, once I've established the foundation, I can begin to build towards making a more sizable offer? Because another thing they struggle with is like, yeah, but I'm told I need a low barrier, no barrier to entry offer. But oftentimes that's difficult if I'm a cosmetic dentist, for example. Where do I get that? I need to get them in to buy my mid-range offer, but I struggle with that because I'm just running these ads on social media.
So I actually disagree with the start at the bottom and work
Oh,
your way
no.
up cost.
Gosh dang it. I do too. You're
You're
supposed to
gonna
tell me.
run out of money. You're going to run out of money before you're able to scale your business. So I don't like the tripwire. You can Don't worry about low priced offers until you have enough money to pay somebody else to create low priced offers for you. So number one. The other thing that I will tell you that I was picking up on as you were talking is I don't agree that a massage therapist is only mid-range. I've gotten massages at Massage Envy, and I've gotten massages at what is it, the Five Diamond thing in Colorado Springs. These people are not charging the same amount of money. So to me, there is no preconceived I don't know if you've picked up on this. There's no such thing as what I'm allowed to do. Like
Right.
there's no such thing as you
There's actually no ceiling on how high a massage therapist could charge. There's no ceiling. There could be $1 million massage. There is a basement though. And that's what the problem is people don't
yeah,
understand that. There is a minimum because there's a point where you start losing money. You have rent.
right.
So there's a basement, there is no ceiling. My preference is let's always test the ceiling. So I absolutely agree with that. And it's embarrassing sometimes to teach with structure because people are like, hey, Sean, all of your businesses were built from the top down, which is true.
My businesses were built from the top down. The other thing, just to back up a little bit to this concept of lead generation and psychographics, I love the way you describe psychographics to be what's your ideal client's belief system. The other way to get into this to help move people from marketing into sales conversations with intentional lead generation using the psychographics you figured out about your ideal client is to be authentically yourself. You want to know how to charge more for what you do, be your authentic self. it makes sales so much easier. You mentioned this earlier when it was how do you get better leads? You get better leads when by the time you're talking to somebody, they're already halfway there. And they're already halfway there because in your marketing, whether that's your content, whether that's you on a podcast, whether that's how your visuals, your language, they kind of know whether or not you're their person. Do they like you? Do they not like you? And I'll give you this example. People who blame everyone else or anyone else for the problems that they're having in their business, those people don't call me. Those people they never call me. I don't have to overcome the objection of woe is me or blame, blame, blame. I would have been okay if this, if it weren't for this thing or if it weren't because in my mark, my brand, it's red and black. You can see me, the tattoos are showing. I'm 53 years old. I still have half my head shaved. Like I stand in my position and I'm so authentic. And that's a battle in and of itself to become so authentic that you can put that out there and feel safe putting that out there. I say it like it's easy. I totally understand that it's not, but that's the battle. That's the battle. One of the ways that I describe this is marketing, lead gen, sales. This is not the hard work. It's not the hard work because you can buy it. There's brilliant people out there who will do this for you if you give them money. But the willingness to be authentic, the willingness, kind of like what we were talking about, to charge higher prices than what you think you can, the willingness to do that internal work that makes all this external stuff possible, you can't pay somebody to do that for you.
That's a perfect segue. I want to talk to you about becoming the person who you need to be to get that work done. But before that, just a real quick, just total sidetrack, derail this just for a second. But you brought that up, and I know what I try to do is I hear the audience, and I so resonate. Not necessarily myself, because I think I try to be my true authentic self. Plenty of people dislike me as a result, and I understand that as a byproduct of being yourself. But there's a lot of people that's not comfortable for them. So you're like, listen, here's my age. I have tattoos. Half my head is shaved. I actually yesterday had a conversation with somebody that was expressing insecurities. Like, what would people say? What if people say? And talk to us just as a derail moment. Like, how do we overcome that? Because I know
Oh my
people that have tattoos and wear long sleeves because they're like, I don't want people to know I have tattoos because what would they say? And I don't want them to know that their doctor has tattoos. And I'm like, well, why? Like, why do you care? And I get it. And it's not rhetorical. I understand why they care, but can you help people who feel that way
Sure.
overcome that?
I describe it this way. Let yourself, like give yourself a break, but don't let yourself off the hook. Like, first of all, give yourself a break. This is how brains work. Your brain has one job. It's to keep you alive. And in order to keep you alive, people got to like you because when people don't, our brains weren't invented yesterday, right? They were all created when if you got, voted out of the cave, you got eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, right? So your brain's job is to keep you alive and it knows, and it's not wrong, that people need to like you in order to keep you alive. And so this whole you be you, that's great. Yes, I agree with it. It's just not that easy. You are up against neuroscience. So give yourself a break there. However, don't let yourself off the hook. Don't let yourself off the hook. In 2018, I nicely call 2018 Erin's year of failure. And a very kind person renamed it for me and called it Erin's year of reflection. And I went from a multiple six-figure corporate job to pretty much instantly running one of the top 10 out of 200 franchises in an entire system to, you ready? In 2018, I made $11,000. I made $11,000, which if you've ever only made $11,000 in a year gross, you understand that net, that's kind of negative. And what happened was as I was as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I got so messed up with, well, what'll people think if I try this? Well, what'll people think if I try that? Well, what'll people think if I say it this way? It derailed me entirely, entirely. And it took focused effort. And I would love to tell you that, you can be driven forward, and maybe you're lucky, you can be driven forward by puppies and rainbows and unicorns and wonderful thing like that. But personally, I change when I get tired of my own crap, right? When I get tired of the things that are holding me back, I finally buckle down and do something about it. And I spend and still continue on a daily basis doing the work that I need to do to help me not fall victim to that, not become susceptible to the way my brain works. It doesn't help to make yourself bad. It doesn't help to make yourself wrong. Again, this is just the way brains work. You have to become a conscious, objective observer of your behavior. And the way that I continue to do this is I do this exercise almost every day. I literally say, what do I want? What do I want? Very specific. What am I working on now? What do I want? And then the 3 questions are this: what do I have to do? Who do I have to believe? And what do I have to think in order to make that possible, right? What do I have to do? What do I have to believe? And who do I have to be? Like, what do I have to think in order to make that possible? And as I do that every single day, it basically helps me set myself up for better and braver, because the answer under who do I need to be is always just more brave. It really is. It's always the answer, be more brave. It sets me up for better decision making because it's a constant litmus test. Because again, if I back off of doing that work, my brain reverts to doing what it knows how to do, which is to keep me safe.
So let's extrapolate that into running a business, being a leader, because I oftentimes too hear people that say, but I'm an introvert and it's difficult for me to lead people. I'm an introvert. It's difficult for me to, create content. It's difficult for me to sell. I don't want to go out and run the booth at the marketing event. I all of these things. And then this is going to bring up hopefully a very interesting discussion that we'll end with. But that's the construct, right? Of who do I need to be? Right. I understand. I think that's part and parcel. I understand what I need to do, but who do I need to be in order to do that? How do you, particularly with your business, help people to bridge that gap?
The first piece is figuring out who you are. And this is going back to lead gen, because it really is all intertwined. The reason Insta tactics, just do this one thing, don't work is because they don't take into account not only the state of the business, but the human. Insta tactics don't take into account the human. What are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you love doing? What is you'd rather get a stick in the eye than do that? Like, you have to know those things, or that what happens is you buy into an Insta tactic that tells you you've got to go out and do something that you absolutely hate doing in order to grow your business. And again, I don't believe that, because yeah, there's foundational things to growing a business. But my favorite question is, in a world of infinite possibilities, how could I fix this? I could hire for the things you're not good at. I have someone who runs my life. I'm not allowed to put this on the things on the calendar. I didn't book this time with you. Allison booked this time with you, because if I put things on the calendar, I double book myself. I forget to click the button for the work. I can't do it. I can't do anything in a row more than 3 times. I can't do it. Allison's phenomenal at doing it, and it makes her very happy to put ducks in a row and check boxes. Great. Great. So you need to surround yourself. First, you need to know, what are you great at? What are you not great at? And I will tell you, there are going to be times where you have to do things that make you uncomfortable. But more often than not, the thing that's making you uncomfortable isn't the exact exercise of what you have to be doing. It's what you're believing about yourself that's making you so uncomfortable. So, introvert, by the way, that's one of my little soapbox sticking points. Introvert doesn't mean you can't. Introverts to me are better salespeople than extroverts, because they actually care. They actually pay much better attention than someone like me, who's very, high energy, go, go, go. There's no reason an introvert versus extrovert is just how you process information and where you get your energy. An introvert can be a wonderful salesperson. You just have to do it differently than I do it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. You have to find the way that works for you. And then surround yourself with the complementary skills that all drive the business forward. And the mistake that business owners make is they hire people to kind of take tasks off their to-do list, but that doesn't drive a business forward. That still keeps all the heavy lifting on you. What if instead you hired for complementary skills? And don't go all or nothing. I can't afford 40 hours a week. I didn't start there. I still don't have 40-hour week people. Right? What if instead of just trying to get a few things off my task list, I hired people for their genius zone so I could stay in my genius zone and everyone was qualified to drive things forward?
Who runs all that?
Me? No. The leader, the business leader, right? Like that is something you have to do, is be a better leader. But I also don't want anyone to think there's only one way to be a leader. There's so many different ways. I have a friend, part of a networking group, and Jen, and what she says, there's a woman, Tammy, and Tammy and I do the same thing. Tammy and I have very similar businesses. But what Jen says is she wants Erin to motivate her in the morning and Tammy to read her a bedtime story at night. Tammy's a soft place to land. She's amazing at what she does. She's an app, but her people and my people are different people. We're not in competition with each other, because even though the solution's the same, the authenticity in our approaches are so different, and who we are and what we're good at is so different from a personality and authenticity, a deliverable, that yeah, you got to learn how to be a better leader, but there's a million ways to be a better leader. Pick the one that works for you.
Two questions to end up. First of all, well, this is all the first question. Are you familiar with Todd Herman's alter ego effect book?
No,
Okay,
no,
so
that
this
sounds
is great.
interesting.
One of the premises is that we have alter egos, right? And we've had them. We've been taught to do this since we were kids. We dressed up as superheroes, so we are conditioned. We know how to become Batman. We know how to become Bruce Wayne. We know how to become a super father. We know how, right? We can play these different roles. But part of the premise is that because of this, there's actually no true authentic self, that everything is just layers of these alter egos. So my question to you is, true authentic self, do you believe that actually exists?
That's a great concept. I'll have to go look at that. I think you're talking to me about the way I'm interpreting is you're talking nurture versus nature,
Mm,
right? And I do think that nurture plays a very big role in who you become,
mm,
right? Whether it's society, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's nationality, whatever it is, whatever you are immersed in, your parents, the trauma that they didn't resolve from their parents, like all of those things absolutely create who you are. But knowing what I know about humans, like I don't think you can completely counter that. I think there is an absolute authentic self. And I'll put it this way. I believe an authentic self is there's no discovering yourself. It's really about uncovering the crap that's been piled on you over the years so that you can see what would you have been without the negative influences that caused you to have to alter.
mm,
Because positive influences don't cause us to have to alter. Catalysts are not positive experiences. Catalysts for change are always negative, right?
mm,
Puppies and rainbows and unicorns, we just keep going. But if
mm.
there's a problem, of harm, a fear, that's what causes us to change so that we can move away from that pain. So who would you be if there was no history of pain, fear, trauma, humanness to have had to overcome? It's not going to be
Great
a
answer.
blank slate. There's going to be something there.
Right, right. Great answer. I love that. Um, conqueryourbusiness.com. That's where you can find out all this information about Erin. Full circle. Put intentional leads in a box. Put a little bow on it. What exactly do you mean by intentional leads?
I'll sum it up this way. There's literally one thing you can do. One thing to remember that might make this like kind of easy for you. You can use this as a litmus test for everything you do. The purpose of communication, every communication, whether it's marketing or sales or chatting with your friends or having a team meeting or even something like this podcast, they all have one intention, and it's to invite people to take one more step with you. That's it. That is it. That's why I hate the concept of a 30-second pitch. I'm not selling my services in 30 seconds to a total stranger. There's nothing I can say that would make that work. Don't jump steps. Don't ask people to marry you before you've bought them a drink, right? So if you just ask yourself, what is the one outcome I want from this piece of communication? And then remember that you have to communicate with intent to move people through a journey. Some of what we do in marketing is just brand awareness. And some of what we do is client journey to make an offer, right? And some of it's to help other people. Just remember there's only one intention, and it's to invite people to take one more step at a time with you and do it intentionally. You will start to turn your marketing into lead generation on accident.
Love it. You crushed it. Gotta acknowledge, gotta acknowledge this elevator pitch. First of all, I always tell people like the elevator pitch, the idea of an elevator pitch really comes from a VC world, Silicon Valley world, where you might have this brilliant idea and you see the money and they
Right.
run into the elevator. And so you get in there because the elevator closes. And now all I want is for you to agree to hear my pitch later on. So I just have however many
Yes.
floors. But when was the last time like you were in the elevator at the Ritz
Oh,
Carlton in Chicago and the thing closed and somebody turned around and they
me
were
and
like,
the
Aaron,
venture capitalist.
or
Well,
they
and
turned around and they were like, Aaron, let me tell you about my cleaning services. Like, what? I agree. That is just so
right,
silly.
it's
Right?
so weird.
And we're practicing this, and there's courses to teach people how to
Oh,
do this. It's such a useless skill.
it's
Like, what do
useless,
you
and I
think?
gotta share this with you because I was once called out, and it didn't bother me, but I was once called out in front of like 400 people by a sales trainer who recognized me at the convention and said, "You and I were in an elevator together. You missed your opportunity." And I looked right at him and I said, "I am a 5 foot tall female traveling alone. I am not talking to you, number one. Number two, I know what floor you got off on. Like, please, like, no, please, no."
Oh, well, you were absolutely fantastic. Listen, I want to encourage everybody to go to conqueryourbusiness.com. And I love that too. Like, take control and conquer your business. Don't let your business take control of you. You need to have control of your business while at the same time being able to maintain your identity and your sanity. I want to encourage all of you to plug in. There's all kinds of great resources there, and plug in with Erin and her team. Find out what they've got going on. I promise you, you're going to love it. If you loved her today, just imagine what it looks like once you jump over into her world. She's got a great podcast, tons of great stuff for you to check out. I promise you, you'll love it. Erin, thank you so much for joining us here on the None of Your Business podcast.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
All right, folks, we did it. She covered for Lacey. See, 2/3 of the podcast. She absolutely knocked it out of the park. Once again, I have no idea how we could possibly top this next week. I have an idea. One thing we could do next week is just bring Lacey back, and then we'll get that leg up, at least on my efforts today. And so we'll have her awesome presence and questions. We could do that. We'll also have to find another amazing guest. So you'll just have to come back next week and see who we have in store for you. Don't miss it. We'll be back again with a brand new episode of the None of Your Business podcast.